He didn't flinch when the alien general raised her weapon. He only stared, bloody and unbent, daring her to pull the trigger. They were alone in the sterile chamber, metal walls humming with quiet menace. No chains, no guards. Just her, a towering figure in obsidian armor etched with symbols he couldn't read, and him, stripped of armor and rank, his uniform torn, his lips split, and his ribs screaming with each breath. Her name was General Virak Shen, and she was the architect of humanity's most humiliating defeat. "I could vaporize you," she said, voice like tempered glass, cold, flawless and sharp enough to cut, and no one would question it. He spat blood at her feet. "Then do it. I'd rather die than fetch your boots." Her eyes, silvery violet and glowing faintly in the sterile light, narrowed. This was not how these rehabilitation assignments were supposed to go. The Alliance claimed it was a humanitarian initiative. Re-educate the remaining Terran soldiers. Redeem them through service under command of high-ranking officers. Voluntary surrender meant a chance at life. A new purpose. But no one asked Captain Reed Malik if he wanted a new purpose. He was captured, beaten, dragged across starlight to this military station orbiting an alien gas giant, stripped of his rights, his unit, his freedom, and now they wanted him to serve the very species that destroyed Earth's last resistance line. "Why resist?" Shen asked flatly. "You're alone, your side lost, and you still fear me enough to keep me under surveillance." His gaze flicked to the dull red dot above the door. "A camera. Or is that just for your peace of mind?" Her upper lip curled slightly. "I don't fear you, I pity you." Reed chuckled dryly, ignoring the pain in his ribs. "That's worse." She didn't blink. "You were once a commander, captain, a fallen man." He stiffened. "Perhaps you thought you'd die gloriously," she went on, "but your life was spared. You were offered a role. You rejected it. Why? You wouldn't understand," Reed muttered. "Not with that metallic heart of yours." That earned the first shift in her expression. Something unreadable, almost human, flickered behind her eyes. "My people value honor. Then you should know why I won't serve you." She walked a slow circle around him, boots clinking softly against the metal floor, every movement deliberate, predatory. "I am not your jailer," she said. "I am your commanding officer for the duration of your rehabilitation, which is prison with fancier walls. Don't mistake your presence here for mercy. This is a test. You fail it, I recommend termination, or worse, remand to the lower sectors." He didn't ask what the lower sectors were. He knew. Rumors among prisoners were graphic enough: arenas, labor pits, organ harvesting. He met her gaze and smiled grimly. "You'd enjoy that, wouldn't you? If you think I enjoy wasting resources on stubborn relics, you overestimate your importance." He couldn't deny the part of him that wanted to die, that hoped she'd pull the trigger and end this slow humiliation. But a deeper part, the soldier, the man who watched friends die screaming, refused. If he was going to rot in alien hands, he'd make them remember his defiance. "Why me?" he asked at last. She stopped walking. "I chose you." That landed like a punch. "Why? You speak 12 languages. You disobeyed your final kill order to evacuate civilians. And you're the last surviving officer from the siege of Tathra Ridge. You matter whether you like it or not. And you think that means I'll play along? No, I think you'll understand the stakes. And perhaps that you're more useful standing than kneeling." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Reed didn't move. Neither did she. The door hissed open behind her, breaking the moment. A subordinate, thin, lavender-skinned, uniformed, entered, eyes flicking to Reed, then to Shen. "General, your next briefing is in 10 minutes. She gave a curt nod. "Place the human in quarter C9. He'll begin duty at 0600. The subordinate hesitated. "He's not yet." 0600, Shen repeated. "Yes, General." As she turned to leave, Reed called after her. "What's my duty, exactly?" "Scrubbing alien toilets." She looked over her shoulder. "Protocol aide. You'll organize my war logs. Attend briefings. Translate intercepted Terran messages. File reports. Guess I'm a glorified secretary. You're a soldier adapting to peace." Her tone suggested it wasn't peace she respected but survival. The door hissed shut behind her, leaving Reed with the tall, silent aide who motioned for him to follow. He limped after them down wood-lit corridors, head pounding. The cell quarters was small but clean. Bed, sink, metal walls with faint pouzolines running through them. No windows, no weapons. He sat on the edge of the bed, exhaling slowly. His eyes drifted upward to the corner of the room. Another red dot blinked. Watching. He was alive. That was more than most of his unit could say. But he was also owned. A prisoner assigned to the alien who broke his world. And yet, why did she choose him? Why not some eager, broken soul desperate for redemption? Maybe because she knew he'd fight. That he wouldn't fold. That resistance forged strength. Still, he didn't care what her reasons were. He had one goal now. Find her weakness. Exploit it. Escape, if not from this station, then from her control. Even if it meant earning her trust first. Especially if it meant that. Reed stood at attention in the command chamber, wrists itching with the memory of shackles. He hadn't slept. The cot in the sterile room was too stiff, too quiet. Not that he would have slept anyway, not with the memory of General Vieirac Shen's gaze pinning itself to his thoughts like a nail through the skull. She hadn't killed him. That was the first surprise. The second was what she expected from him this morning. They called it a protocol aid. It felt more like being conscripted to organize war crimes. The chamber buzzed softly with energy banks of angular consoles, pulsing alien glyphs, data streams in languages he could half recognize. Several of her officers stood to the sides, tall, pale blue or violet-hued, all with the same dispassionate expressions. Reed's presence turned heads, the Terran among them. General Shen entered last, in full regalia. Her dark armor moved with liquid efficiency, segmented like a carapace but smoother, refined. Her face betrayed no emotion, not surprise, not irritation, not even satisfaction, just command carved into bone. "You are late," she said. "I'm not on your clock," Reed replied. "You are now." He said nothing, biting back the thousand curses that lived at the edge of his tongue. She gestured to a station to her left. "Sit. Translate the intercepted Earth signals from Channel 17B. Cross-reference any proper nouns with our operative logs. Report anomalies. Do I look like a codebreaker to you?" She stepped forward until they stood nearly nose to nose. "You were trained in linguistics. I've read your file. Don't insult both of us by pretending to be stupid." He met her gaze. "You've read my file. Then you know what happened at Tather Ridge." For a moment, half a heartbeat, her eyes flicked. "I know." He almost said more. Almost demanded what she knew about that horror show of a battle. But her expression froze any follow-up. It wasn't cold, it was guarded. "Fine." He took the seat. The interface was alien but intuitive. She probably designed it that way on purpose. Lines of intercepted Terran transmissions flowed across the screen in disjointed snatches. Rendezvous delayed. Blackout in sector. Contact lost with outpost Echo. Resistance cell Theta requesting fallback. Some of it hurt to read. These were the voices of his people, still out there, still fighting, still dying, and he was here, translating. He translated 4 messages before the tension broke. "Why do you keep watching me?" he asked, not looking away from the screen. "You're unpredictable," she said from behind him. "That's not the same as dangerous. You're also dangerous." He snorted. "You flatter me." There was a pause. "Humans have many flaws. But you're tenacious. I respect that. To a point. Respect? From you." He turned in the seat. "Is that a joke, General?" She tilted her head slightly. "You think I don't understand war. I think you don't understand us. Because I defeated you. Because you never bled with us. You never stood in the mud, watching civilians choke on their last breath while orbital strikes turned hospitals into ash. You observed, commanded, droned." A flicker passed her face. Then nothing. "You think pain defines loyalty," she said quietly. "No," he said. "But it defines understanding." She looked away as if the conversation was beneath her, but she didn't walk off. He took that as a crack in the ice. They worked in silence for an hour. He translated. She reviewed other reports, occasionally issuing orders in her native tongue to aides who moved without hesitation. Her command presence was absolute. But now Reed could see something else: pressure. Not fear. Not quite stress. But weight. Her decisions had consequences. She bore them like iron on her shoulders, never acknowledging the load. He wondered how many others had served under her. He wondered how many had died. When the briefing ended and aides filtered out, she remained behind. So did he. "What was your first command?" he asked. She gave him a long, unreadable stare. "Why, curiosity. And I figure I'll need something to think about when I'm scrubbing through another 2 hours of encrypted chatter." She didn't answer immediately. Then, finally, "I was 15. We age faster than humans. My first command was a cargo escort during the siege of Mix Divide. We were attacked by scavengers, former colonists turned raiders. They disabled our escorts, boarded one of our freighters, and began executing hostages." He raised an eyebrow. "What did you do?" "I disabled life support on that freighter. Killed everyone, including the crew, including the hostages." The air went still. "Cold decision," he said. "No, strategic. You sleep well after that." Her gaze bored into him. "I don't indulge guilt. You might find that hard to understand." "Oh, I understand," he said. "That's the only way you people win. Strip it all out. The feelings, the doubt. It makes monsters out of you." To his surprise, she didn't rise to the insult. "I once thought that too," she murmured. It wasn't a confession. Not quite. But it wasn't a denial either. She walked to the far panel, entered something on the console, and a square panel on the wall slid open. A small tray extended with 2 protein packs and a silver flask. "For you," she said, nodding at one of the packs. He eyed it with suspicion. "Poisoned. If I wanted you dead, I'd not waste the time with subterfuge." He took it slowly, watching her as he tore the packet open. It tasted like ash and raw oats, but it filled his stomach. It was the first real food he'd had since capture. They sat in silence for a while, across the chamber from one another. "You're not what I expected," she said eventually. "I get that a lot. I expected rage. Or fear. You got both. Just hidden better than most." She gave a faint nod. Approval, perhaps. Or calculation. "Why me?" he asked again. "I told you." "No. You gave me a justification. I want the truth." She didn't answer this time. She stood, walked to the door, and looked over her shoulder. "You're not the only one being evaluated, Captain Malik." And then she left. Reed sat there for a long while after, staring at the screen, the flickering text blurring. What did she mean by that? Reed awoke to the sound of sirens. Low and guttural, like the groan of a dying beast. The lights in his quarters pulsed crimson. Somewhere beyond the metal walls, a voice barked orders in Shen's language, sharp, fast, urgent. He rolled off the cot and hit the cold floor barefoot. No window, no clock, just that incessant alarm and the suffocating sense that something had gone wrong. The door hissed open. 2 guards stood in silhouette, weapons ready. "Move," one ordered in clipped common. Reed didn't argue. He dressed in silence, pulled on the rough gray uniform they'd issued, and followed them into the corridor. The ship had changed. The smooth calm of yesterday's operations had vanished. Panels flickered. Emergency lights cast everything in blue dread hues. Crew members ran past, barking status reports. In the main command atrium, General Vieirac Shen stood before the central hollow table, her gauntlets stripped off, hands braced against the edge like a warrior ready to spring. Her eyes snapped to read the moment he entered. "Situation?" he asked instinctively. "Old habits." Officer voice. She didn't seem to notice or mind. "We've lost propulsion and partial shielding." Saboteur. Human. Reed's stomach dropped. "From the prison block, one of yours, Lieutenant Marquez. She escaped confinement 2 days ago during a transfer. We assumed she was dead. She wasn't." He knew that name. Mara. Tactical ops. Ruthless, brilliant, and half-feral after 3 months in enemy hands. She'd once volunteered to blow herself up just to take down a single enemy transport. What did she do? Spliced into our main systems. Overrode engine control. Diverted coolant to the lower decks. Half of this ship is boiling itself alive. And you brought me here. Why? You think I'm in on it? I brought you here because we are locked in a decaying orbit over a gravity well, and I can't trust my own people to fix it fast enough. She stepped closer, voice low. You want to prove you're not just another piece of human fury and guilt? Help me save this ship. Reed hesitated. The floor vibrated beneath his feet. Not subtly. Not like before. The ship was buckling. If we burn up, you burn too, she added. He glanced around. Several of her officers were eyeing him with undisguised suspicion. A few had hands on their weapons. Fine, he muttered. But I want full access. No escort. No leash. You're not in a position to bargain. He looked her dead in the eye. Then find someone else. A tense silence. Then she raised a hand. Clear him. A wrist console was passed to him. Locked, but he could feel the root access there. She'd given him what he asked for. Or damn near close. He swiped through diagnostics. Primary reactor isn't fried, but the coolant loss is real. If we don't reroute within the hour, we disintegrate on entry. Yes. He moved, fingers flying over the interface. Alien architecture, but familiar enough now. Modular control nodes, sequence triggers, encryption protocols. It was like playing a piano he hadn't touched in years. 2 officers followed behind him as he made his way into the engineering deck, but they kept their distance, as if afraid he might self-combust. The corridor to the lower decks was bathed in steam and smoke. He could hear the hiss of pressure valves, the occasional clatter of a failing vent. The air reeked of burnt polymers. Shen appeared beside him, armored again, visor down. "I thought you had people for this," Reed muttered as he overrode a sealed bulkhead. "I do," she said. "But I trust none of them as much as I distrust you." He huffed a laugh. "Is that a compliment in your language?" They entered the core chamber together. It was massive and open, multi-tiered cylinder with cascading conduits and cooling towers climbing into darkness. Fluorescent coolant bled from one of the side tubes, pooling in a glowing lake at the far edge. Sparks danced across the floor. "Up there," he pointed. "We need to manually reseal the breach or the failsafes won't engage." Shen didn't wait for permission. She launched herself up the ladder with terrifying speed. Reed followed, slower, breath catching from the heat. They reached the control junction. Reed popped the panel. "I'll handle the override. You hold the pressure valve until I say go." She nodded. Then, just before turning, she paused. Why did she do it, Marquez? He didn't stop working. Because she doesn't believe in surrender. To her, we're already dead, so she figures she may as well take down as many of you as she can on the way out. That's not loyalty. That's vengeance. It's both. With us, it usually is. Shen said nothing. The pressure valve screamed as she took hold of it, bracing her body against the hydraulic tension. Reed keyed in the last sequence. Now. She pulled. The seal hissed. Coolant diverted. The alarms flickered and changed tone from urgent to stabilizing. Reed slumped against the wall. "We bought you another 6 hours." Shen didn't move for a long moment. Then she turned and looked at him through the rising steam. "Why did you do it?" she asked. "Do what?" "Help me." He met her gaze. "Because I want to live." She nodded. "And if I died trying to fix it alone, then at least I wouldn't owe you." They stared at each other, the heat making their breath visible even through the scorched air. Neither blinked. Then, a voice crackled through Shen's COMM. "General, Kess has been located. Secondary hull." She set explosives on the stabilizers. Shen tapped her wrist. "Send teams. Seal off all airlocks leading aft." "I'm on my way." Reed stood. "Let me talk to her." She won't listen to your people, but she might listen to me." Shen hesitated. "If she refuses, I'll stop her." "You're not armed." "I don't need to be." She studied him, measured, then handed him her sidearm. "Bring her in alive," she said. "If you can." He took the weapon. Heavy, alien, deadly. "I'll try," he said. "But you should know, she won't hesitate. And neither should you." Reed left her standing in the steam, her black armor shining under emergency lights. He was heading toward a human with nothing left to lose while carrying a weapon from the enemy he wasn't sure he hated anymore. The lines were blurring. Fast. And the fire was getting closer. The hull trembled again, this time with more violence. Reed could feel the tremor in his teeth. The stabilizers were straining. If Mara Kess succeeded in blowing the secondary housing, the ship would spiral into the atmosphere like a crippled blade. He moved fast through the service quarters, sidearm tucked into the back of his uniform, his body drenched in sweat. It wasn't just the heat anymore, it was the dread that grew with every clank of the metal walls, every distant shout over comms, every second closer to Mara's self-destruction. She'd always been the kind of soldier who believed survival was a compromise. And compromise to her was betrayal. Reed finally reached a junction near the secondary stabilizer hub. 2 dead Shen guards lay slumped in the corridor, one with a crushed windpipe, the other shot clean through the visor. Mara had never been sloppy. No spray of fire, no panic, just brutal precision. He stepped over the bodies, gun still holstered. The blast door was half open, jammed mid-cycle, no doubt by Mara herself to slow pursuit. He crouched and slid under the gap. Inside, the world dimmed to a deep, ominous hum. The stabilizer core glowed violet, its turbines spinning slower than they should. Power was draining. Mara stood near the edge of the support scaffold, crouched over a series of conduit boxes. Wires were exposed. Charges set. Ready to blow. She didn't look up. "You're late." "Didn't know I was invited," Reed said quietly. Mara rose to her full height, tall, lean, a silhouette cut in cold steel. Her hair was matted, her eyes shadowed and sharp with purpose. "I expected them to send a kill team. Instead, they sent you." "I volunteered." She smirked. "Of course you did. You always thought you could talk your way out of hell." He took a careful step closer. "You're rigging this place to blow. You'll kill everyone on board." "Not everyone, just them. You still have time to leave." "They're not evacuating, Mara. They're trying to fix it." "Shen's still on board." "I know." Reed's stomach twisted. "You're not saving anyone. You're just making sure the war keeps going." Her hand hovered over a detonator, thumb brushing the edge. "Better that than peace on their terms. You don't understand what they've done to us." "I understand plenty. I was there when they pulled the trigger over Jakarta. I saw the cities burn, same as you." "Then why are you standing on their side?" "I'm not. I'm trying to survive." "So are you. But this isn't survival. This is suicide dressed up as heroism." She laughed, bitter and dry. "And what would you call what you're doing? Playing house with the enemy? Taking orders from the one who locked you in a cell?" Reed stepped closer, his voice low. "She gave me a choice. That's more than anyone's done for me since this war started." Mara stared at him. Something behind her eyes flickered. Confusion? Hurt? "You've changed," she whispered. "So have you." The ship rocked again hard. An alarm wailed above them. "They're falling behind on atmospheric control," Reed said. "The core's heating up. You blow this, we all die in fire and metal." "Good." He pulled the gun from behind his back. Slowly, not aiming it yet. "Mara, please." "I won't let them win," she said, eyes glinting with a furious finality. "This isn't winning. This is burning the board." A long silence. "Then I thought you were dead, Reed." He blinked. "What?" "When they took you, I assumed they killed you. I grieved. I cursed your name. Then I buried it. Because it hurt too much to remember." He lowered the gun, hand trembling slightly. "And now you're here, breathing, talking like you've forgotten everything we lost." "I haven't forgotten. I've seen things. Seen them up close. They're not what I thought. They're still the enemy. They're still people." Mara's jaw tightened. "People don't occupy planets and slaughter children." "No, but neither do monsters ask for help. Neither do they bleed trying to fix the mess someone else made." I watched General Shen rip open a coolant line with her bare hands to keep the ship from melting down. She didn't hesitate. Mara scoffed. Oh, how noble. She could have left me behind. She didn't. That stopped her. For a second, why are you really here, Reed? He hesitated. Then, softly, because I owe her a chance. And I owe you the truth. He stepped forward again. Close now. You're not alone. You never were. And this doesn't have to end with one more name on a casualty list. For a moment Mara's hand trembled over the detonator. Then, the blast door behind them slid open with a metallic screech. Shen entered like a shadow, weapon drawn, flanked by her guards. Her visor retracted, eyes narrowed. Reed turned, shouting wait. Mara moved faster. She grabbed the detonator. Reed lunged. His shoulder slammed into her midsection, driving her backward into the rail. The device clattered across the floor. Guards shouted. Shen didn't fire. She didn't have to. Reed pinned Mara, panting. She fought, screaming in rage, but he didn't let go. Her fists hit his ribs. Blood filled his mouth. He didn't stop. I'm sorry, he whispered, but I won't let you die. Shen stepped forward and retrieved the detonator, eyes locked on Mara. Secure her, she ordered. 2 guards hauled Mara to her feet. She spat blood at their boots. Shen looked at Reed. You did well. He didn't feel well. He felt broken. I know her, he said, hoarse. I know what she was before this. And what is she now? He glanced at Mara, her eyes wild with rage and pain. I don't know anymore. The ship moaned again, but it was holding. For now. As Shen led Mara away, Reed remained behind, sitting on the scaffold, his body aching. He had stopped a traitor, saved a ship, but somewhere in his chest, something had cracked, and it wasn't going to heal easily. The prison cell was buried deep beneath the ship's reinforced hull, a cold, hexagonal chamber rimmed with blue lights and walls that pulsed like they were alive. General Alira Shen stood behind the observation glass, arms folded, her breath barely fogging the panel. Inside the cell, Mara Kess sat motionless on the floor. The rage was gone, now burnt out like the last embers of a fire. What remained was quieter, darker. Reed Vale leaned beside the general, bruised and stiff, a bandage taped over his temple from the scuffle earlier. His gaze didn't leave Mara. She hasn't spoken, Shen said finally. Not since she was brought in. She won't, Reed muttered. Not to you. Shen's eyes flicked toward him. But she might to you. I doubt it. Then convince her anyway. We intercepted a transmission. Someone knew she was aboard. Someone knew she'd try to sabotage the ship. Reed's jaw clenched. You're saying she had help. I'm saying there's a leak. Maybe here. Maybe deeper. And if there's a plot in motion, we're on borrowed time. Silence stretched between them. Let me talk to her, Reed said. Shen gave him a long look, then nodded once. The outer door slid open. He stepped in. The temperature dropped immediately. Mara didn't look up. You here to finish the job, she murmured. I'm here because I still think you're worth something. She let out a hollow laugh. You're wasting your breath, Reed. You used to be the best tactician in the regiment. The only person who ever beat me in sim. Now look at us. Enemies. Caged animals. You weren't always like this. Neither were you. He crouched down in front of her, meeting her eye. You had a contact on this ship. I need to know who. No, you want to know. So you can keep licking Shen's boots. Reed didn't flinch. She trusts me. That's leverage. We can use it. We. There is no we anymore. He stared at her. What happened to you, Mara? She looked away. I broke, she whispered. You weren't there. You didn't see what they did to the captured units. You weren't chained up and dissected. I was. And I survived. But the part of me that hoped, the part that waited for you to come back, that died somewhere in orbit over Kepler V. Reed's chest tightened. Mara, they put something in me, something alien. She lifted her shirt, just slightly, to reveal a fine line along her ribs, barely noticeable, but it glimmered faintly. You think I was trying to destroy the ship? You were. I was trying to trigger it. Reed's blood ran cold. Trigger what? Her smile was faint and sad. I'm a weapon, Reed. A fail-safe. They lost control of me, but it's still in here. And if someone activates it remotely, this ship, Shen, everyone on board, we're just sparks in the dark. He stood, stunned. Why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't trust them. I barely trusted myself. But now you know. He turned toward the glass, where Shen stood frozen, having heard every word through the audio feed. Her face was unreadable. Reed stepped back. We can help. We can cut it out. Mara rose to her feet. They tried. The first lab tech that opened me up got liquefied. He blinked. What? They booby-trapped the tech. If I die, it detonates. If I try to remove it, same deal. I'm carrying a goddamn black hole seed in my chest. Reed backed up, processing. And you were going to blow the stabilizers. If I couldn't kill the weapon inside me, I'd take it out the old-fashioned way. Shen entered then, slow and calm, her guards posted at the door. She said nothing at first, just observed Mara, like a mathematician examining an unsolvable equation. Finally, we have containment labs. High-field disruptors. If it's tech, we can isolate it. Mara laughed. You're dreaming. Shen didn't blink. No, I'm adapting. Reed turned to the general. You believe her? She's too tired to lie. I'm still a prisoner, Mara said flatly. No, you're a warning. One we're going to understand before someone sets you off. She stepped forward, hand behind her back, and tossed something toward Mara. A badge. Access level green. Mara caught it. I'm giving you a chance, Shen said. Not because I trust you, but because Reed does. Mara looked from the badge to Reed. Then, softly, what's the catch? You stay where I can see you, Shen replied. And if you try to sabotage us again, I won't hesitate. Mara gave a tired nod. I wouldn't expect anything less. Later that night, Reed lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling while the ship thrummed beneath him. Everything had changed. Mara was no longer the threat. She was the threat, contained, unknown, and impossibly dangerous. But she was also the key to something much deeper, proof that someone in the enemy's command still wanted this war to escalate desperately. He closed his eyes. Shen was right. They were on borrowed time. And somewhere out there, someone was holding the detonator. The medbay was quiet, dimly lit by sterile lights that hummed with soft electricity. Machines blinked in silent rhythm as Mara Cass lay shirtless from the waist up on a padded table, her torso encased in a transparent field that shimmered with containment energy. Electrodes trailed from her chest, mapping her biorhythms on 3 different monitors. Standing beside her, General Alira Shen wore a black surgical cloak, her sharp silver eyes flickering over the readouts. Across the room, Reed Vale leaned against the wall with his arms folded, gaze fixed on the woman he once knew, who now housed a weapon capable of vaporizing them all. Mara exhaled, the air shaky. Is this what counts as bedside manner in your regime? Shen didn't answer at first, too focused on stabilizing the readings. The dampeners are holding. The neural spike hasn't activated in 3 hours. I feel like a bomb in a snow globe. Accurate. Shen stepped back. But we're learning. The signal tether embedded in your thoracic cavity emits and pulses coded intervals. This isn't just a weapon, it's a broadcast device. You're saying I'm a transmitter, or a beacon? Reed approached. That's how they're tracking her. Shen nodded. Most likely. That means we're not just hiding her, we're hiding the thing they want most. We've become the bait. A long silence passed. Mara's voice softened. Why are you doing this, Shen? Why not jettison me out an airlock and let the problem solve itself? Shen turned to her, her face as unreadable as ever. Because the war already took too much. It won't take someone who still wants to live. Mara blinked. Something in her hardened expression cracked barely, but Reed saw it. A flicker. A shift. Later, she sat on the edge of a steel bench in Shen's private chamber, dressed now in a plain black uniform. Her hair was damp, having finally accepted the offer of a shower. Reed brought in 2 mugs, the steam curling above them. He handed one to her. She sniffed it. Real CF, close enough. They sat in silence, sipping quietly. The distant hum of the engines was the only sound. Reed broke the silence. When we were in training, you said if you ever retired, you'd buy a cabin on the cliffs of Ione 5. Remember? I said I'd fill it with war trophies. He smirked. You said you'd fish and drink and watch storms roll in over the cliffs. She didn't smile, but her grip around the mug eased. Those cliffs are gone, she murmured. Bombed out 2 years ago. Nothing left but ash and wind. His voice was low. I know. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in days. Her eyes were tired, but something deeper stirred there. You're not angry, she asked. I was. For a long time. Thought you'd betrayed us. Thought you chose them over us. But now, I think you just survived something I didn't. Mara's voice cracked. They wired me into it. They made me feel nothing while I watched them kill our squad. And I couldn't even scream. Reed reached out, placing his hand on hers. She didn't pull away. You're here now, he said. And that means something. She closed her eyes, taking a shuddering breath. I don't know if I can be who I was. Maybe don't try. Be someone new. They sat like that for a long time, the contact between them unspoken, tentative, like stepping onto ice that might crack any second. A few hours later, on the command bridge, Shen reviewed Mara's full bioscan data alongside Dr. Kell, her chief biologist. The alien tech was unlike anything they'd seen. Kell tapped a glowing thread on the hologram. This isn't just a bomb. This is an interface. It's designed to connect. Connect to what? Shen asked. To them. The architects who built the original relay gates. The real enemy behind this war. Shen turned slowly, spine straight. You're saying Mara's not just a soldier or a host. She's a key. Kell nodded. A living one. Down below in the observation deck, Mara and Reed stood against the glass, staring into the void of stars. What if we don't survive this, she asked, voice soft. Then we go down knowing the truth. And if we do survive, Reed turned to her. Then we decide who we want to be, together. She didn't answer right away. Her fingers slowly slipped into his, uncertain but there. No one said anything more. But they both knew the war had changed. And so had they. The ship trembled. Not from the usual sublight drift or reactor hum, but a sudden, bone-deep vibration that made even the reinforced hull groan. Klaxons screamed to life in rhythmic pulses. Red lights strobed across the walls. Mara Kess sprang from her cot in the medbay just as the doors hissed open, flooding the room with soldiers in matte black armor. Reed Vale burst in behind them, breath ragged. "We've been breached." Mara didn't wait for an order. She was already moving, grabbing her utility belt and strapping it on Midran. As they raced down the corridor, overhead lights flickered, and a harsh voice cut through the comms. "Enemy boarding party has infiltrated Deck 7. Repeat, Deck 7 is compromised. Prepare for close quarters engagement." "That's engineering," Reed growled, tapping his COMM Shen. "They're trying to cripple the core." Alira Shen's voice came through tight and clear. "I know. I'm already en route." "Mara, do not engage directly. If they're here for you." "I'm not hiding," Mara snapped. "This ends today." Reed shot her a look but didn't argue. There was no time. They reached the lift just as it sputtered, lights failing. "Manual," Reed said, yanking open the emergency panel. They dropped into the maintenance ladder, descending 4 decks in a controlled slide. At the final rung, the hatch above them exploded inwards, showering them with debris. Something hit Mara's shoulder, but she rolled with it, cushioning Reed as he dropped behind her. The hallway outside was chaos, gunfire sparking off bulkheads, screams in every direction, smoke and energy discharges clouding vision. Bodies littered the floor, human and otherwise. The intruders were not standard enemy troops. They moved faster, spoke no commands, and bore no insignia. Their armor pulsed with the same ominous circuitry that had once lit up under Mara's skin. "Special extraction team," she breathed. "They're here for me." Reed pulled her into cover. "Then we make them regret it." He handed her a plasma carbine. She checked the charge. Full. They moved together, cover to cover, cutting down anyone in their path. Shen's soldiers had rallied now, forming choke points along the narrower junctions. Mara fought like a revenant, precise and merciless. Reed had seen her in action before, but never like this. She was a storm, her movements brutal but controlled, as though the fire in her veins was being channeled for the first time, not against her will, but by it. They reached the engine core's outer chamber just in time to see the last of the engineers hauled out by enemy troopers. The central console blinked with warning lights. Someone had rigged a timed overload. Mara lunged forward, but the second she crossed the threshold, the air shimmered, and a containment field slammed down between her and Reed. "No." Reed slammed his fists against the barrier. "Mara." She turned just as a figure stepped from the shadows beyond the console. Tall, hooded, armor etched in ancient symbols that glowed faintly with violet light. "You remember me," the figure said in a voice like molten steel. Mara's breath hitched. "Surin." Surin's hood fell. His face was scarred, tattooed with the same glyphs that glowed on his armor and the same ones buried deep inside Mara's own body. "You were never meant to escape," he said. "You were built to open the gate." "I'm not yours anymore," she said, voice like ice. "You never stopped being mine. You're not a soldier. You're a relic, a conduit, a tool, and now the gate hungers." He raised his hand and Mara's spine arched as pain slammed into her, pure, electric agony that made her knees buckle. Reed shouted her name behind the barrier, pounding against it, helpless. Surin stepped closer. "Come home." Mara's fingers gripped the ground. Blood leaked from her nose. She reached inside, not for a weapon, not for rage, but for something else. Reed. His voice, his steadiness, his belief that she was more than the thing they had tried to turn her into. And beyond him, Alira Shen, who had saved her instead of condemning her. Who had seen her, not the danger inside her. Mara opened her eyes. And she fought back. The field rippled as she surged upward, the bias signal in her chest pulsing violently, uncontrolled. Lights shattered. Consoles exploded in sparks. Surin staggered back, face contorted in rage. "You'll destroy yourself," he hissed. "Then I die on my terms." With a scream that echoed through every system on the ship, Mara raised her arms and the interface inside her bloomed like a star-going nova. The blast that followed wasn't fire, but a wave of raw energy shattering the control systems, sending Surin flying into the far wall. His body cracked with a sickening thud. The containment field fell. Reed was through it in a heartbeat. Mara collapsed into his arms. The core had stabilized, the overload averted, but the price had been high. Later, in the aftermath, Shen stood by the observation deck, gazing out at the field of wreckage now drifting away from the Kestrel. The enemy ship that had launched the boarding had been destroyed, but Surin's body had never been recovered. Reed joined her, quiet. "She's resting." "She shouldn't have survived that," Shen said. "But she did." He nodded. "And you saved her." "You both did." Shen's voice was distant. "You think she's free now?" Reed didn't answer. Because deep in the medbay, Mara Kess sat awake, staring at her hands. The glyphs were gone, but something new was growing in their place. She could feel it. A presence. Watching. Waiting. The gate hadn't opened. But it had seen her. And it was listening. The Kestrel floated in orbit over a pale, shattered moon. Outside the starboard windows, the horizon of a dead world stretched in silence, cracked like glass beneath a starlit sky. Inside, corridors once humming with urgency were subdued, almost reverent. Repairs were underway. The ship had survived Surin's ambush, barely, but survival wasn't the same as healing. Mara Kess stood alone in the observation deck, arms crossed over her chest, eyes fixed on the void. Her breath fogged the glass, rhythmic, measured. From behind, footsteps approached. Familiar ones. "You didn't sleep," Reed Vale said, his voice low. She didn't turn, didn't need to. He came to her side, watching her profile in the dim reflection of the glass. "You haven't said a word since they pulled you from the medbay." "I've had nothing worth saying." He leaned against the railing. "Then let me talk." She glanced at him now, something in her expression unreadable. "You scared the hell out of me," he said. Mara looked away. "I scare myself." Silence lapsed between them, the kind that weighed heavy with things unsaid. Then, almost whispering, she added, "It didn't leave me, Reed. Whatever Surin triggered, it's still there, inside, and I don't know what it wants." He studied her face, the tension behind her jaw, the hurt buried under her strength. "What do you want, Mara?" She opened her mouth and paused. No one had asked her that. Not since Earth. Not since the day her unit was wiped out, and she was taken from the battlefield by those who saw her not as a person, but as a weapon waiting to be ignited. "I don't know," she admitted. "For so long, all I wanted was to make it out. Then I wanted revenge. Then I wanted to prove I wasn't what they said I was. But now," Reed's voice was quiet, "now you've survived it all and you're still standing." "Yeah." Her eyes drifted toward the stars. "But I'm standing in a world I don't understand. I have something in me that doesn't belong to humanity or any species I know. I'm not a soldier anymore. I may a question the universe hasn't answered." Reed reached into his coat and pulled out a small, scorched datapad. "Then maybe it's time we start looking for answers." Mara took the pad from his hand and blinked. The data on it had been recovered from the remains of Surin's gauntlet, scrambled at first, but partially decrypted by Shen's team. The symbols weren't just decorative. They were coordinates. Dozens of them, scattered across star systems, some dead, others long forgotten. Each one marked a gate. Each one pulsed with the same energy that lived in her chest. "It's a network," she whispered. "They're not just gates. They're conduits. Ancient, predating the Council's oldest records. Surin was trying to awaken them. And you stopped him," Reed said. "No, I paused him. If he survived the blast," her jaw clenched, "he'll come back. With others. I wasn't the endgame. I was the key. There's more like me out there. Or there will be." Reed's eyes darkened. "Then let's find them first." Mara looked at him, the heat of his gaze unwavering. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. But it was loyal. Fierce. Real. For the first time, she let herself lean into someone who saw the monster inside her and didn't flinch. "You'd do that?" she asked. "Hunt myths for me?" He smiled, tired but genuine. "We've already fought off a death cult, survived a gate burst, and pissed off half the galaxy. What's a few more ghosts?" She laughed soft and low, surprised by it. Alira Shen joined them a moment later, holding 2 steaming cups of Cynthia. She offered one to Mara without a word, the other to Reed. Mara took it, nodding thanks. Shen's presence was more reserved, more watchful. But there was no longer suspicion in her gaze, only respect. "Preliminary scans suggest the gates are powered by entangled particles," Shen said. "If one opens, the others will respond, possibly across light years. We can't shut them down individually. It has to be all or none." Mara sipped the tea, staring into the distance. "Then we find the central node. The core gate. The origin." Shen nodded. "Agreed. I'm commissioning a long-range stealth vessel. The Council has agreed to unofficially sanction it." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Unofficially?" Shen smirked. "They don't want to admit they've lost control of the situation." Mara tilted her head. "Then let's really make them nervous." Shen set her datapad on the console. A 3D star map bloomed into the air, lines connecting the gates in a spidery web of light. One node pulsed brighter than the rest, hidden in the dense clouds of a system no one had charted in over 100 years. System name in reach. Mara traced the coordinates with a finger. "That's where we go." Reed nodded. "Then we go together." As they stood shoulder to shoulder, watching the stars shift around the projected map, Mara felt something in her loosen. Not resolve, she still had that in abundance. But fear. Fear had shaped her for so long. It had molded her silence, fed her rage, dictated every movement of her life since the day she was altered against her will. But now finally she had found something louder than fear. Purpose. Not as a soldier. Not as a relic. But as Mara Kess. She looked at Reed Vale and Alira Shen, 2 people who had walked through fire beside her. One out of duty, the other out of something deeper. Mara straightened, voice steady. "Prep the ship." The stars waited. And this time, she would meet them on her terms. The Kestrel sliced through the dark void of Iden Reach's orbit, its hull groaning under the strain of unrelenting ion storms that crackled like wildfires across the planet's magnetosphere. Outside, swirling clouds of emerald gas shimmered, casting eerie lights over fractured mountain ranges and shattered cities below, remnants of a civilization long fallen, swallowed by time and war. Inside the bridge, the tension was suffocating. Mara Kess stood rigid by the navigation console, her eyes locked on the flickering star map as the ship's sensors scrambled to pierce the thick ion storm. The central gate, the heart of the network, loomed ahead, its massive structure half buried in the broken surface of a deep crater. It pulsed faintly, a living beacon radiating unstable energy that threatened to tear the very fabric of space around it. "Shen, status report," Mara demanded, voice sharp but steady. Alira Shen's fingers danced over her datapad, her normally composed face etched with concern. "Energy readings are spiking rapidly. The gate's power core is destabilizing. If it overloads, it will cause a cascade obliterating this entire system and sending shockwaves across adjacent star clusters." Reed Vale stood at Mara's other side, eyes scanning tactical data. Enemy vessels approaching fast. Surin's forces reinforcements. Mara's jaw clenched. "How many?" "3 cruisers plus multiple fighters. They're coordinating to intercept us before we can shut down the gate." The door hissed open suddenly, and Lieutenant Zane Rallies hurried in, breathless. "Commander Kess, we have incoming transmissions from Surin himself. He's broadcasting a threat across all frequencies." Mara stepped forward, activating the comm channel. Surin's face flickered to life on the holoscreen, scarred, unyielding, eyes burning with fanatic intensity. "You cannot stop the ascendants." His voice was a razor edge. "This network belongs to those who embrace evolution. Your resistance only delays the inevitable. Join us or be annihilated." Mara's gaze hardened. "I'm not here to join anything. I'm here to end your madness." Surin sneered. "Then prepare to witness oblivion." The transmission cut. "Shen, how much longer until we can stabilize the core and initiate the shutdown sequence?" 10 minutes if we can hold the gate's energy long enough." Reed looked at Mara, urgency flashing in his eyes. "The cruisers will be on us within 5. Mara took a breath, steadying herself. "We make a stand, deploy the defense matrix and prepare for close combat. This ends here." The bridge erupted into orchestrated chaos. Alarms blared as weapon systems powered up. The crew moved with practiced precision, a dance of desperation against an overwhelming enemy. Outside, the cruisers tore through the ion storm, their dark hulls illuminated by bursts of plasma fire. The Kestrel shuddered under the first volley, shields flaring like celestial auroras. Mara gripped the edge of the console, her mind a razor's edge of focus. Memories flickered, her training on Earth, the loss of her unit, the betrayals and scars. This fight was not just for survival, it was for redemption, for the fragile hope of a future beyond the endless wars. "Shen, prioritize the core," she commanded. "Reed, coordinate with fighters. No enemy ship gets past." Reed nodded sharply, fingers flying over his control panel. "Deploying interceptors. Targeting cruisers' weak points." As the Kestrel's fighters swarmed the enemy, Mara felt the pulse of the gate's unstable energy thrumming beneath her feet. The countdown echoed in her mind: 10 minutes to save a system, a galaxy, perhaps countless lives. Suddenly, the ship rocked violently. "Breach in engineering," Rallies shouted. "Hull integrity compromised." Mara spun toward the door. "Seal it. All non-essential personnel evacuate to safe zones." Alira's voice crackled through the COMM. "We're losing power to the core stabilization system. Mara, if we can't maintain containment, the gate will implode." Her heart hammered. There was no room for failure. Through the viewport, the gate pulsed wildly, tendrils of energy lashing out like a storm unleashed. Mara clenched her fists. "Not today." She moved to the tactical console, activating the ship's experimental pulse disruptor, a weapon designed to destabilize and absorb gate energy. "This is a risk," Shen warned. "If miscalculated, it could accelerate the overload." "Then we calculate perfectly." With Reed's help, Mara synchronized the pulse disruptor's frequency to the gate's energy signature. The ship hummed with raw power as the device charged. Outside, the cruisers bore down, firing relentlessly. The Kestrel's shields flickered under the assault. "Pulse ready," Reed said. "Stand by." Mara's voice was cold steel. "On my mark, now." A blinding wave of energy surged from the Kestrel, striking the gate's core. The pulse rippled through the ancient structure, destabilizing its erratic energy flow. For a heartbeat, the storm outside stilled, as if holding its breath. Then, the gate's glow dimmed, the pulse softened. But victory was fleeting. An explosion rocked the ship. The disruptor overload triggered a feedback cascade. Power faltered. Systems failed. Mara staggered, gripping the console for support. The hull groaned ominously. "Emergency protocols," Rallies yelled. "Prepare for evacuation." "No," Mara said, voice raw but unwavering. "We finish this." She locked eyes with Reed and Shen. Together, they moved as one, sealing critical systems, redirecting power, stabilizing the core long enough to trigger a controlled shutdown. The gate's light dimmed to nothingness. Silence. Then the Kestrel shuddered, the ion storm breaking apart as if the planet itself exhaled relief. Outside, the enemy ships retreated, their assault broken. On the bridge, exhaustion washed over the crew, but so did something else: hope. Mara sank into her chair, breath coming hard but steady. Reed sat beside her, offering a hand. "Did we really do it?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. She looked out at the fading storm, the shattered moon beneath them slowly healing in the quiet dark. "We stopped the ascendants," she said. "But the fight, it's only just begun." Alira placed a reassuring hand on Mara's shoulder. "One battle at a time." Mara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of everything: loss, pain, and the fragile spark of something new. In that moment, beneath alien stars and broken worlds, they were no longer just survivors. They were a force united, unyielding, ready to face whatever came next. The aftermath settled like a thick fog over Iden Reach, lingering long after the last sparks from the shattered gate had faded into memory. The Kestrel drifted silently in orbit, its systems still rattled from the final battle but holding steady. Inside, the crew moved with a careful calm, the adrenaline that had carried them through the storm now replaced by a quiet exhaustion. Mara Kess stood by the viewport, gazing out at the cracked surface of the planet below. The scars of war stretched like veins across the land, but beneath that ruin, faint glimmers of life were beginning to pulse: small colonies of survivors, rebels, and those who refused to bow to the ascendants. The gate was destroyed, its power snuffed out, but Mara knew the war was far from over. Reed Vale approached, his footsteps soft on the metal floor. "Commander, the fleet is regrouping. The ascendants' forces are retreating, but they won't disappear. They'll strike again." She nodded, her jaw tight. "We gave them a major blow, but this victory is fragile. We need to prepare for them and for what comes next." Alira Shen joined them, wiping sweat from her brow. "Our systems need repairs, and the network disruption caused by the gate's collapse will ripple through the sector for months." Mara turned to face them both, her eyes burning with renewed determination. "Then we rebuild. We gather allies. We become the resistance this galaxy desperately needs." A quiet beep interrupted the moment. The communications console flickered to life, projecting a hologram across the room. The image was unexpected: General Surin, battered but defiant, his scarred face twisted into a grim smile. "You may have destroyed the gate," Surin said, voice strained but unwavering, "but the ascendance is not a thing to be crushed by one act of defiance. We will rise again. This conflict will consume us all, and in the end, only evolution remains." Mara's lips curled into a cold smile. "Then we'll be here to stop you." The transmission ended, leaving silence in its wake. Reed exhaled sharply. "He's not giving up." "No," Mara agreed. "And neither will we." Later, as the crew began repair operations and strategized for the future, Mara found herself alone in the ship's quiet observation deck. The stars above were vast and unyielding, endless in their mystery. She thought about the lives lost, the sacrifices made, and the impossible choices that still lay ahead. Her comm unit chirped softly. It was a message from Lieutenant Zane Rallies. "Commander, I found something in the data logs, something that might change everything." Mara's curiosity piqued. "Send it to me." Images and encrypted files streamed onto her visor. Detailed schematics of a hidden ascendance facility buried beneath Iden Reach's surface, an experimental research station rumored to be developing a new kind of weapon. Reed entered quietly, catching the last images before the transmission ended. "A last card they're playing." Mara's gaze hardened. "Then this war isn't over. Not by a long shot." She clenched her fists, feeling the familiar fire of leadership ignite within her. The shattered gate was just the beginning, a spark in the darkness. As dawn broke over Iden Reach, Mara turned back to her crew, her voice steady and resolute. "We fight not just to survive, but to reclaim what was lost. To protect those who cannot protect themselves. This is our fight now." Around her, the crew nodded, tired, but unbroken. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and shadows, but in that moment, beneath the endless stars, a new hope was born. And Mara Kess, survivor, warrior, leader, would carry it forward undaunted, unyielding, ready to face whatever came next. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more gripping sci-fi adventures, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Cheater and Chills channel now. Your support keeps the stories coming.